Good evening, I'm Caroline Goggin. If you live in the Tioga Central School District, your taxes may be going up. Our Stephen Adams joins us live in the studio to explain just how much. Stephen?
Caroline, the Tioga Central School District is proposing a 30% tax levy for the 2015-2016 school year. That means if you own a $150,000 home, you could expect to be paying roughly another $400 in school tax next year. Rising pension and health care costs have been straining the district, forcing the school board to dig deep into its reserve funds for the better part of a decade. And that's only part of the problem. The district says the state has been shorting them by millions that were expected as part of something called foundation funding. Now there is a more than $900,000 budget gap that the school leaders need to fill. But even with the proposed tax hike, the local tax levy would still be the lowest in all of Broome and Tioga counties. The district says without it, programs like sports and music will be on the chopping block.
Right now, we're probably kind of making the headline because of this, but I think this is a situation, unless things change in the way schools are aided, that is going to happen more and more, particularly with high needs, smaller school districts.
The budget proposal will be finalized in the next couple of weeks. Taxpayers will then cast their votes to accept or reject it on May 19th. But even if the tax increase passes, it's not a long-term solution. As the superintendent said at tonight's school board meeting, the district's reserve funds will be completely depleted by 2020. And that means without more changes, the school board would have to borrow money to stay afloat. Caroline?
All right, thanks, Stephen. A New York City man is behind bars in the Broome County Jail after being arrested last night at the Red Roof Inn in Johnson City. 29-year-old Daniel Brown, a Bronx native, was arraigned in the Village of Johnson City Court and is currently being held in jail without bail. Brown was found with 291 bags of heroin, a small amount of U.S. currency, and a small amount of marijuana. The Broome County Special Investigations Unit Task Force executed a search warrant last night at the hotel where they recovered the drugs and the money. Brown is being charged with the following: criminal sale of a controlled substance in the 3rd degree, criminal possession of a controlled substance in the 3rd degree, and unlawful possession of marijuana. Blood expert Terry Labor is back on the stand today as the defense continues calling witnesses in the 3rd Cal Harris murder trial. Labor has analyzed more than 300 homicide crime scenes in his lifetime. His testimony today completely contradicted the findings of other expert witnesses, including Dr. Henry Lee, who was called by the prosecution. Labor testified that after analyzing photos of the bloodstains found in the Harris house, he found no indication of cleanup in any of the stains, nor was it possible to determine what caused these stains. Previous witnesses called by the prosecution said some of the bloodstains showed evidence of cleanup and alteration. And Dr. Lee testified that some force was used to cause the blood spatter found in portions of the house. Labor said in his professional opinion, the bloodstains found in the Harris house are not consistent with the bludgeoning scene, which is the prosecution's theory on how Michelle was killed. Labor will finish testifying tomorrow morning in Schoharie County Court. A suspended Binghamton police officer accused of leaving the scene of an accident took the stand at her own trial this morning. Christy Sager was off duty when she was involved in a crash on February 4th. Sager says she hit a patch of ice on Eldridge Street and lost control of her black Cadillac SUV, striking the rear of a parked car. She says she gave the owner of the car her last name, workplace, and license plate number, but admits she didn't hand over her insurance information, saying she didn't want to give him her home address, given how angry he was. Her attorney says it is clear no crime was committed.
You know, I am confident that we put in a really good case. We put in what happened. We put in the truth of what happened. I believe if you look at this statute and what it was aimed at, there should be a finding of not guilty.
The judge expects to have a ruling within the week. 21-year-old Johar Tsarnaev was convicted on all 30 charges in the Boston Marathon bombings and the violence that followed. Now the same jury that convicted him will decide whether he lives or dies. Chris Van Cleve reports from Boston.
The jury convicted Johar Tsarnaev on all 30 counts after deliberating for about 11 hours over 2 days.
I don't know what justice is. I'm grateful to have him off the street.
Karen Broussard and her husband were among the more than 260 people injured when 2 homemade bombs exploded near the finish line of the 2013 Boston Marathon. 3 people died. Tsarnaev showed little emotion as he looked down at the defense table and fidgeted as the word guilty was repeated over and over.
Whether or not he showed any remorse, how we would feel about it. And personally, I wouldn't have bought it. I would have been more frustrated if he had shown it, because throughout this whole thing, he's been, to use my word, arrogant.
8-year-old Martin Richard was the youngest killed in the bombings. His mother wiped